Good energy investments rely on sound energy policy. That's easier said than done, especially over the past few years. Economic and political turmoil around the world, not to mention major energy disasters, have made these decisions especially difficult for energy leaders. These challenges will be on full display this week when many of these leaders from industry and government gather in Houston. They'll be there for a business forum hosted by the World Energy Council, a London-based organization with energy specialists from around the globe. The Council's Secretary General, Christoph Frei, joins me today. Christoph, what does keep energy leaders up at night?
Well, first of all, as you just mentioned, the energy leaders want a long, basically robust policy framework. And I think if you ask our leaders, energy leaders, and we do that once a year in over 90 countries, so what keeps you most awake at night, what comes out this year strongest is basically it's the uncertainty on the one hand around yet still the climate framework. It is, but basically why? Because if you have no certainty on whether yes or no there will be a carbon price or tax going forward, that makes a huge difference between you having a stranded investment or a business, basically a profit investment. The second point, obviously, Fukushima, and more widely the whole context around risk. We have also seen Macondo last year, and the kind of international risk governance is probably a second issue that is very high on the agenda. And the third issue is the Arab Spring, what kept basically people busy looking at geopolitical developments in the Middle East. I think that those were three issues that came out highly. I think another point that is important to mention is that we see, as a consequence of those issues, uncertainty behind all the issues that we looked at as basically part of the solution, including nuclear, renewable energy, energy efficiency, carbon capture and sequestration. All those basically technologies that were seen as part of the solution have suffered now from this framework uncertainty, from investment type of uncertainty, etc.
And more uncertainty than we've seen, say, 2 or 3 years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago.
Even last year, I think there was a perception that those issues were more under control. But before COP15 in 2009, clearly there was enthusiasm and belief that we are converging on a number of issues, and this is not as close as it seemed to be back then.
You know, one thing I found interesting in the survey was that the respondents didn't seem to be quite as concerned about the financial issues as they were in 2009. It seems like there's a little bit less concern over the overall financial malaise that the whole world has been going through.
One has to put that into context, I believe. First of all, obviously, the whole 2009 after 2008, if you recall Lehman Brothers going down in mid-September 2008, and that, I think, created a degree of uncertainty for an unknown, a totally unknown. What does it mean to capital market? What does it mean to having access to those for the long-term investment that it takes, etc. And I think the initial kind of a lack of insurance how to deal with those issues was just massive, and I think today it's not that those concerns have gone away, but I think the industry feels they better understand what this is about and how to deal with the situation.
And is that the case even with the difficulties that are ongoing in Europe, even as we speak?
Well, it's not that those are not important issues, but put those into a relationship with what happens in Fukushima, the disruptive kind of nature that this could have, if you go back to Germany, a decision that if they want to go out of nuclear, that's really a big disruptive decision for not only Germany, but the whole of Europe. And that is even more important, probably with a longer term impact than what the financial crisis can do.
Let's go back to climate change for a minute. There'll be another major international meeting in December on climate change. And of course, as you said, there's been little in the way of progress in the U.S. and other countries. It just seems that it makes it so much more difficult for industries, electric utilities, for example, to make plans based on that absence of policy.
And that's really a big problem. I think this is the single most concerning issue to the whole industry, and that's a surprising statement if you look at it. It's we cover not only industrialized but also developing countries, and I think again the importance of having absence of clarity here really makes a difference for the planning, and it's critical. Do we believe in progress in COP? Everybody is hoping for progress there, but we see extremely slow convergence around those issues internationally, which makes actually the focus on national policy policy, or in the US perhaps state-level policy, makes a hugely important issue, and we invest a lot of time actually in trying to understand what are best practices that can help deliver progress in those areas.
You have this meeting in Houston this week. What do you expect will be the big issues talked about down there? These very same ones, or do you think something else?
Well, I guess in the US, obviously the discussion on shale gas is one that is extremely important, not only for the US but internationally. There will be lots of questions asked in that context in Houston, I would expect. There's also mobility, the whole transportation mobility side that will be an important issue. How does policy impact, future policy impact that sector? And we have just launched our scenarios, or we are going to launch our scenarios in this context, and there's obviously that's a second important issue. But then yes, the whole risk mitigation post Fukushima and post Montando, what kind of international frameworks can improve the risk mitigation? That's an important issue that we will address in Houston as well.
What's your take on the Obama administration and U.S. energy policy right now?
Well, if you look forward, if you again, from a policy perspective, what World Energy Council's perspective is that there's a need for, we have a trilemma basically. The trilemma is you need to have high degree of energy security. You need to have a good way in looking that the energy remains affordable, and you need to make sure that this is environmentally sound, what you're doing. If you miss out on any one of those three dimensions, a lobby builds up in that area and will actually kick into and make your policy not robust over time. That's obviously what investors hate to see. And I think looking forward, there's certainly space from the US side to, on the environmental side, make clear what the position is.
Christoph, we need to leave it right there. It's Christoph Frei. He's the Secretary General of the World Energy Council. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Stay tuned. Cuba's ready to drill for oil in the Gulf of Mexico. Is the U.S. Stay with us.